Number 1. Country hike. One of my favorite things to do when I was younger was go on long hikes when my family went to my grandma's house. When I was really young, I didn't get too adventurous, but when I got into my teens, I was able to spend more time out in the woods. In fact, sometimes I would bring along a tent and camp out there. At the time this story happened, I was 17 years old. My family was heading to Grandma's to spend a couple weeks. I really wanted to go out and go hiking, so I told my family I was probably going to go out on the first day, hike for the day, camp out overnight, and return home the following day. I was looking forward to doing this so much that I only visited with the grandparents for a short amount of time before I headed out into the forest. My grandparents lived in a very rural area, and there were miles and miles of woods to explore. I would always try to do my best to find new areas to explore. This time, I started by climbing a hill and descending into the following hollow. I went down the hollow and then up another hill. This was an area that I wasn't familiar with at all. I was hoping to see some interesting things. I've seen caves, waterfalls, and a lot of interesting things in the past. This time, I did come across a very, very large creek that was just beautiful. I walked along it for a while and found a log to cross. At this point, it was starting to get dark outside, and I figured that I should set up my tent. I made a little fire and fixed myself a nice little dinner. After that, I read a little bit and decided to go and get some sleep. I laid down in my sleeping bag and was about to close my eyes when I heard something. I was sure it was just an animal, and maybe my fire had attracted it or something, but I still got out of the tent to make sure. When I got out, I saw a light out among the trees. It looked very much like someone holding a flashlight. The moment the light shined on me, it clicked off. My eyes hurt for a minute due to the quick lighting changes. When they adjusted, though, I didn't see anyone or anything. I was about to call out before an odd thought went through my head. Why would someone with a flashlight in the middle of the woods turn it off right when they saw someone? The only thing I could think of was that they didn't want me to know they were there. It was actually a chilling thought. I had to go back into my tent. I thought about grabbing my flashlight and looking for the person, but thought maybe that wasn't the best idea. If he didn't want to be seen, then the worst thing I could do to him would be to see him. Instead, I figured I would just go back into my tent and try to relax and keep aware of what was going on around the tent. Back in the tent, I was stuck between being very scared and trying to tell myself that I really didn't have anything to be afraid of. As to which was actually accurate, I had no idea. But I heard a lot of noises that night. At one point, I thought I heard someone walking around outside of the tent. At that point, I grabbed my hunting knife, just in case I had to defend myself. When I had it in hand, I suddenly saw a light once again turn on outside my tent, but it was much closer. It shined right at the side of my tent, and then quickly went out again. At that point, I was absolutely terrified. Someone was out there, and there was no doubt about it. I lay there with my knife, waiting for something to happen. It was nerve-wracking, and I thought someone was going to try and hurt me. After a few moments, there was a loud noise as something slapped up against the tent. I scuttled toward the other side of the tent and yelled that I had a knife. I heard some moving around, but no more slaps to the tent. After some initial noises, there was no further indication that anyone was around. I remained up until it was light enough to head back to my grandparents' house. Once I was ready, I got out to take my tent down. I looked at the wall of the tent that was slapped and nearly fainted when I saw blood smeared onto it. My thought was that someone definitely didn't want me out here and was trying to tell me to leave, or else. I packed up quickly and began heading home. Wow, it was so nerve-wracking going home. I jumped at every noise, but the quiet was even scarier. I didn't feel safe or relaxed at all until I got home. That was my last hike ever in those hills. Number 2. The Visitor. I occasionally would babysit for my aunt and uncle back when I was a teenager. They lived out in the country and had a satellite dish, which was sort of more rare at the time than it is now. They paid me a little, and I got to watch some great TV channels that my family didn't get. It was pretty great. I was 15, and my cousins were 11 and 12 at the time this story happened. My aunt and uncle were going to be out of town for a few days, so I packed up and I went over to babysit. Once they left, I made some popcorn and me and the kids settled in to watch a movie and have some snacks. We were sitting there for a while when the girl got up in the kitchen in order to get a drink. And when she came back, she told me, "There's someone in the backyard." Well, I guess I should have been concerned, but I wasn't right away. She often was scared of things and even still asked me to check her closet before going to bed. I first told her that it was probably her imagination, but she didn't accept that. She insisted that someone was definitely out in the backyard. It would be really weird if someone really was in the backyard. I mean, it's a backyard and then it's just hills and forests. If someone was out there, they hadn't come in from the driveway because I would have seen the light. That meant whoever it was would have had to come through the woods. That was a bit of a scary thought. I still thought it was probably her imagination, but I was the babysitter, and I had a responsibility to make sure she wasn't scared. So I told her I would go ahead and check it out. I went into the kitchen and looked around. I checked in the backyard and didn't see anything back there. But as I was walking back into the living room, I suddenly saw someone's head looking in the hallway window. He quickly moved away, though. Scared myself now, I was happy that I was the sort of person who always locked the doors. Before I could get back into the living room, I heard someone begin pounding on the front door. The kids got scared, and the girl kept repeating that it had to be the man that she had seen in the backyard. I got to the kids and brought them into the hallway. After a few moments of pounding on the door, the man out there began yelling for me to open the door. I yelled at him to go away or I would call the police. I also told him that I had a gun, and if he didn't leave immediately, I'd have to use it. The knocking did stop after that, but that was hardly comforting. A few moments later, I heard a pounding on the back door. I really didn't know what to think. Why was this guy even here? And why would he think I would open the door? I hustled the children into their parents' room. I got into the closet and got my uncle's gun. I told the kids to stay in the room and lock the door. I told the girl to call the police. We were pretty far out, so it would take them a long time to get there. I took the gun and went downstairs. The man had returned to the front door. I let him know I had the gun. The police were called and were on their way. The man went to a window and looked in and saw me with a rifle. He immediately left. After that, I guess the guy was gone. He didn't knock on the door, so the point had to come across to him. The police got there, and I explained what happened and described the guy to them. They figured he was just some crazy hermit or something. They checked around the yard and in the surrounding area to make sure he was gone before leaving. I immediately felt scared once they were gone. When my aunt and uncle got back, my uncle knew who the guy was. He let me know he would deal with it, and it wouldn't happen again. I'm not sure what he meant by that, but knowing my uncle, a big, brawling country boy type, it wouldn't be good for the man. Number 3. The book. You see a lot of weird things out in the country. I don't know why that is, but I hear and read a lot of really strange stories that happen out in the country. But this is really one of the weirder ones. My aunt inherited a house from a friend of hers when I was 13 years old. It was a very rural house. There wasn't another house for at least a 20-minute drive down a gravel road. I really enjoyed being with my aunt, so that summer, my parents dropped me off there for a month. It was not my first time in the house, as we had been over there a few times, but it was definitely my first time spending a while there. The house was sort of perfect for my aunt. On her own, she was quite the hoarder. But the people who owned the house before her were quite the hoarders too. When they passed away, they had things stacked all over in the house. Hell, there was one room that was completely stacked with National Geographic magazines. And when my aunt moved in, she didn't clean up any of the clutter. I was really curious about what I could find in the house. So one day my cousin and I decided we were going to go and explore the attic. It was a really large attic and had tons of things in it. We were hoping to find something frightening. There were a lot of clothes, boxes, and stacked furniture in it. When we were exploring an old dresser, we found a small metal locked box in the bottom drawer. It took us a while to break the lock, but when we did, we found a really old diary in the box. It was dated during the Great Depression. Not all of it was easy to read, but we both went and read quite a bit of it. I can tell you one thing. It was the most horrifying thing I'd ever read in my life. The diary had a lot of weird pictures drawn in it. They were like looking into the mind of a psychopath. There were pictures of people being hung from a tree and wrapped with what looked like barbed wire. They were bleeding. Some pictures were of decapitations, some were bludgeoned, limbless, and there were many of them. I do want to make it clear, though, these are drawings, these are not actual photographs. But what got me most was that they were all named. The picture would be on the left page, and the right page would have a description of how the person was killed, and it was disturbing. Now, we were young and into scary things, so of course, part of us were comfortable thinking this could be real, because in reality, we knew it had to be fake. However, as we went through it, we found something that made us think that it could be true. There was a story about the very house that we were in, and that the man writing the book really wanted a house. And it was this house. And he explained how the owner was a relative, and that he was the only possible person to inherit the house. He explained that he was going to kill the guy before he could write a will, so the house would be his. The next page explained that he went camping with this uncle and murdered him out in the deep woods. He claimed he buried him in pieces under different heavy rocks so he would never be found. The uncle was reported missing by a co-worker. He was eventually pronounced dead when he was never found, and the man writing the book moved into the house. It was the last entry in the diary. I asked my cousin what the name of the guy who left the house to my aunt was. He didn't know, but we took the name for the diary and asked her. It was that name. We didn't tell her about the book. We thought she would get rid of it. She was unlikely to ever go through the old furniture, and we knew it would be safe if we left it there. The two of us often went up and looked at the book. We had no idea if the man was just a fan of scary stuff and wanted to be a writer. We had no idea if he was just delusional. And we had no idea if everything in that book was the absolute truth either. It has been a few decades since I last seen the book. My aunt eventually sold the house and moved elsewhere. I sort of wish I would have taken it with me. Now, in the internet age, I might have been able to find out more about it. and discovered whether it was real or fake. Hey y'all, Killer Orange Cat here. If you want to read print versions of these stories, you can do that at the Killer Orange Cat subreddit. In the meantime, if you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please consider subscribing by using the button below, or using the icon of Ichigo the cat that will appear at the end of this closing. Feel free to leave me a comment to let me know what you thought of the video, and consider sharing it with someone you think might enjoy it. You can always follow Ichigo and myself on Facebook and Twitter using the links in the description. If you have a story you'd like narrated on Killer Orange Cat, please feel free to submit it to the address provided in the description. My main requirement is that the story is original, meaning it has not yet been read on any other YouTube channel. And please, whatever you do, don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.